Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Sorry about being so late. Um, Thank you very much for being part of the show. I am DBJ, your host, and today, this being Wednesday, of course, we have a show Thursday and Friday. Starting a bit earlier than the normal 6 a.m. Advertised time. Today are going to talk about um, uh, we're going to talk about Dune the rest of the week. Now, we have done this before, but of course, the movie by Denis Villeneuve has come out, and it's pretty exceptional, I think. Uh, Far more positive than negative. But uh, we're not going to just talk about the movie and the book. But of course, this being a tabletop role playing show, what we're going to do is talk about, well, tabletop role playing games. And of course, it being Wednesday, World Building Wednesday, we're going to take apart a bit of things that I see in the Dune books and movie, and then we're going to translate that. We're going to do, we can call it an homage, but really we're going to steal that for our own tabletop games at home, and we're going to go from there and say, like, you know what is it about the concept of Dune that really intrigues people? Now, let's all start from the same. Let's all start from the same starting line. So I think the thing that really entranced people about Dune is that it wasn't that there was one specific new concept. It's that the the books were written involving a ton of different yeah, a ton of different concepts all put together, just happened to be all placed together, kind of like the art of the art of war. It was a ton of different things all separated, put together in one science fiction book, and then that became the catalyst to draw in so many people as fans. Yeah, Dead Man's like, the new Dune movie is better the larger the screen you're watching it on. Oh yeah, Denis Villeneuve, who's matter of fact, let's take a look at um, let's see what kind of get a list of some movies here. I suppose I should be doing this a lot earlier, but uh, he's got an extremely good eye for, in my opinion, for m- a minimalist eye that does wonders to get across the idea that he wants. So here we have great movies: Dune, Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, Sicario, Prisoners, a movie that I actually haven't seen. I've heard really good things about, is Enemy. And definitely, when we take a look at Arrival, Blade Runner, and even Sicario, although Sicario isn't a science fiction movie, it's the idea of a minimalism. He tends to use very colors that are minimalistic, browns, shades of brown and white and black and gray, and then putting our characters so far in the distance, even though we're focusing on them, that putting things in the background is awesome. Yeah, absolutely. I cannot agree more. I have not seen it on the big screen. I Unfortunately, I saw it at home. HBO Max released here in the states, but I think it's so good I have to see it on a big screen. So it's possible. Now, so scale's a big thing. One of the limitations of the movie, but something that I think is really interesting in Dune, is the idea of using hand to hand martial weapons in a very high sci-fi setting, and not quite explained in the movie, but it is explained in the books that people have these force shields, and the force shields are, the faster the faster the assault, the stronger the force shield is against it. So, um, high energy weapons, extremely fast projectiles, extremely fast and sharp, high acceleration martial attacks are blocked by the force fields. The slower you go, the easier it is to penetrate. And the idea was that air needs to penetrate the force shields. If the force shields were protected against everything, you would suffocate inside the force shield. So air has to pass through so you can breathe, which means a slow blade can go through. And so their martial arts attacks, fast, 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 close in, slowly pierce the blade through, and then go to work on them. And there is another subtle thing that they really don't want to use laser beams. I can't remember the names in the book. It's like laser blast or laser beam weapons, because it does a feedback loop causing like a nuclear explosion. Yeah, you don't want that. But what a great way thematically for the writer to say, you know what, I want this to feel very medieval, even though it's in space and it's science fiction. They're traveling through space. I want this to feel medieval. Boom, came up with a reason why those kind of things can't be used. So pretty good. In your world, maybe if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons or Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition, if you're playing those games and you don't want lightning bolts and fireballs and magic missiles flung everywhere, maybe there's something. Was it laser guns? Laser guns. That's it. Dead man. Thank you very much. Yeah, laser guns, and it does some kind of feedback loop that the force shield. Neither side wants each individual person exploding like a nuclear bomb, either for nor against their enemies, because you might not want that to happen. So there was a resistance to use laser guns against each other. But um, specifically, here are the things, and I think this is a triple stage book in terms of the ideas we can steal from it. And here's what I mean by triple stage. It's probably more stages than that, but let me explain what I mean by this. We do have a story of a, a young Paul Atreides. I've heard it pronounced Atreides and Atreides, whatever, Atreides, sorry, and coming of age. So we do have a classic coming of age story. We also have it combined with a chosen one story. And I've heard complaints, people are talking about it like, oh, it's another white savior movie. And I think what people don't realize is that answer actually is correct, but it's incorrect at the same time. And I find it funny because it is true, but uh, it also gets punched in the face. And the reason for that is because within the movie, it does explain this in the movie. Not so in the most recent movie, not so much in the other portrayals, but the idea of when Paul arrives on the planet Arrakis and the people there look at him as the chosen one, that is a lie. At least so far as the creation of the idea that there is a chosen one created by the Benny Jesuit. So they created that many centuries ago for the arrival of the possible arrival of um, Paul Atreides, or at least someone like him. And so it's in a weird way, yes, because he's supposed to be the savior of this planet and such, but also no, because it was supposed to be a lie. Now, of course, come to find out that it's actually true, and they have to live this. He's got to live this lie along with his mom in order to survive out in the desert and combine themselves. I mean, like ingratiate themselves with the desert people. But I think the idea of like a chosen one existing in the world and then it being like it was a lie created by like a lich or a dragon or like an ancient vampire or a cult many years ago or something like that. I think that's kind of a cool idea, because if a player character ends up falling resembling the prophecy and then pretending that they are part of the prophecy and then come to find out that they fulfill the prophecy, it kind of makes you wonder like, wait, was that really a lie? I don't know. All right, but so we do have a classic coming of age story and a prophecy story. We also have combined with it, yes, I'm going to make I'm going to make the comparison because this came first. Going to make the comparison to Game of Thrones, and I can almost guarantee you that George R. R. Martin was a fan of this book series and felt like this book series did it great justice, and that is the idea of various factions. And there's nothing better in this story than the number of factions, what they represent, and how to use them. So, for example, the Fremen is one faction, and then we have the Guild Navigators are another faction, and the Harkonnen or Harkonnen are another faction, and the Atreites are another faction, as well as many others. And of course, they have to mine the spice, and we'll get into the mining of the spice. But the Harkonnen are literally described as they're your classic enemies, right? They butcher people, they feed off of their almost literally feed off of their blood. They've mutated themselves. They torture and mutilate, and they're inhuman and all that kind of stuff. So of course they're like that. Huh? Only have enough channel points to send 4 messages in sub only mode. Have to be careful not to waste them. Re- yeah. Oh, thanks, D. Thanks, Dead Man. Yeah. I was like, what? When did that change? What? Huh? That shouldn't be a thing. Okay. Anyway. All right. Well, you didn't have to send that message that you wasted. Thank you there, Princess B. Thank you there so much. All right. So here are some of the cool things about factions I think we can steal from Dune. And although not given a lot of attention, there's 2 factions that I think really, really are exceptional in Dune, and that are the Guild Navigator and the Emperor. All right, so the Guild Navigators I think are the most are the most creative. So to travel throughout the planet of this interstellar empire, the guild navigators are the ones who are able to pilot the starships to open up the wormholes to go from one place to another. And so you have a specific guild that is able to transport people from one place to another. What a great faction to use. You're so awesome, princess. Awesome, awesome. Um, because you got me there. I was just like scratching my head, like I think I'm gonna need to talk to you personally about That's like the person that says, "Can I ask you a question?" Sure, and you're like, "That's one question. Next question." um, so the idea that there is a guild that is an intermediary to do something else. Maybe you have a world that's extremely dangerous to travel around in a fantasy realm, and there's a guild specified whose job it is to take people from one place to another is a great one. Mind you, a guild doesn't necessarily need to be focused on travel, but the guild navigators really, really embrace that. And of course, tying it in with the spice melange, the guild navigators are able to need vast amounts of spice in order to pilot the ships because the spice allows them to predict the future in many ways and then keeps them from impacting debris and being able to see in the fourth dimension and through descriptors. And you can look this up if you do some Google searching, that the guild navigators don't even look human any longer, that their bodies have been their minds have been expanded and their bodies have been manipulated so much through uh breathing in literally living on spice that they are like twisted remnants of their past humanity. But another thing that's really great about the guild navigators, it's like how how hard is it to become a neutral party when so many other factions are trying to manipulate against each other. Maybe the guild navigators being brought in to this idea of taking out the Atreides family and house by a deal between the Emperor and the Emperor's Sardaukar Special Forces military and the Harkonnen or Harkonnen. So we also have another faction, which is the Emperor. And of course, everybody wants to fight for the throne, but the emperor is this isn't this godlike figure that no one ever sees. The emperor actually has, well, emotions, including jealousy and greed and such. And so the emperor, while outwardly perceived as this neutral party that controls uh, the, the ruling empire, doesn't like the fact that the Atreides are, or Atreides are gaining so much favor, that people like them, that they're trustworthy, that they are hardworking, that they are symbols of honor, and they don't like this at all. So they have to come up with an idea. Yes, I'm giving away plot points, but the book's how holds the book 60 years old anyway. And so the idea is to get them off their planet, um, Caladan, and then send them to this desert world, and then pincer move them in, and then they can't escape. Yep. And then being forced to have to take care of spice mining, which is, the spice must flow. And of course, when the book was written, this was back when, this is during the period of time when lots of oil was being found in the Middle East. And so the oil itself, even in the movie, the recent Denis Villeneuve movie, they show the Baron, bathing in this oil, and pretty nasty, and bathing in the oil, and it's a very extremely good visual, but it's pretty damn nasty. Princess Brahhammer says the game Greedfall did a travel guild as well. Nautical navigation in that game is the exclusive knowledge of a group called the Nauts, and they replenish their numbers by, among other things, noble families trading rights to unborn children to the Nauts for special access and privileges to sea trade and travel. See, perfect example. And now, in today's world, we have so much knowledge open to everyone that it would seem to us to be very difficult to keep specialized training or skills, knowledge, education out of the hands of other people. But in, say, a fantasy realm, learning a trade was a thing that you had to study under specialists. And so this in the Greedfall about the Nauts having specified knowledge about nautical travel in and around the world, and it being so important that people are literally trading their young unborn children to be trained under the Nauts. Eh, Pretty decadent, of course. Yeah, we wouldn't necessarily agree with that. But listen, if you control power, there's a lot that can be said for that. What's the Swords and Sandal movie? The 300. Excuse me, 300 was a movie where young people were, newly born children were given to the Spartans to be trained as newborns, and many of those kids were, well, we like to look at them as the heroes, but a lot of dead children were dumped over the edge of a cliff, or a lot of children were dumped over the edge of a cliff, killed, left out into the elements. So, not including the ones that trained as Spartans that probably died when they came of age. But again, specific faction having a particular kind of power in a world where you have other factions moving and shaking stuff. So I love the story elements of that. So yeah, absolutely. Also, there's the tension of the spice itself, and for those who don't know, the spice is, it's pretty easy to understand this. There's giant worms on a desert planet. There's also spice. Where's the spice come from? It comes from the worms. Some would say it's a worm. What's a nice way to say it? Worm effluvia, worm waste product. Um, it's spice blow from the worms, coming up to the surface and diving back down again, and it is being mined off of the surface. And of course, the spice melange for many people looks like powder. A not so subtle parody to like cocaine and whatnot. Yes, very much so. Psychedelic drugs at the time that the books were written, expands the mind, and of course, with the spice, guild navigators need to use the pilot. Guild navigators, the more favor you have with them and the expense that people need the spice for, the greater power a particular faction has, a particular house or something of that nature. So, great, I love that part. Now let's get into let's get into some other things about Dune that are also great. Well, let's get into the magic powers, right? We've got space wizards. Um, the Benny Gesserit, the Benny Jesuit, different. Some call them Ben Gesserit stuff. It doesn't matter. Anyway, in the movie, it's pronounced Benny Jesuit, and the Benny Gesserit are a witches. They're known as witches, nuns, uh, maybe even warlocks, oracles, the whole 9 yards. All female to a one, except for the one that is born, Paul. Now, of course, they are manipulative in the backgrounds. They also have they have been manipulating using eugenics programs to manipulate people. Not that part of it is not, it's hard to find that information in any iteration, movie wise, of Dune about their machinations, but they can choose to give birth of a specified gender when they give birth. So Paul's mom chose to have a male heir for her husband, or at least the gentleman that she's not married to. They couldn't get married. She's kind of considered a mistress or a concubine in this world, but they still loved each other. So she gave him a son, and so they can choose to do that. In role playing games, especially now, and in your home game, you could do whatever the heck you want. If you're producing a role playing game, it's specified genders for different abilities and powers and things like that isn't conducive to having your game open for everyone. But you do have to admit that, again, here's something that they kind of threw out there as a rule that, of course, they broke themselves. Again, the writer doing, breaking the is this a white savior story? Well, no, but yes, but no. And the same thing goes for here, where, oh well, all the power is in the hands of these women that are part of these witches or these nuns, and the answer is yes. Well, no, because Paul is definitely born with those powers and being trained in the use of those powers. And one of the aspects of those powers is described in the movies, various iterations of the movies, is the voice. And it's like a combination of a specified wavelength of sound plus psychic ability. And of course, we see this translated over in Star Wars, where these are not the droids you're looking for. Same kind of thing, where you have to center yourself and speak in a certain manner, and it mind controls other people and gives them some other traits, like, for example, opening your minds, being able to see into the future and predict things, psychic powers, right? Pretty easy. So we have that in the sci-fi future. Um, I think lastly, we have some really cool NPCs that I think deserve a bit of spotlight. So as we take a look at a number of the NPCs, three that stand out to me, and of course, there are three that are spotlighted in the movie, are the Mentats, Doctor Liet Kynes, and the family doctor. Prof- a scientist and a doctor. Okay, so we have three NPCs, and they kind of round out various motivations out throughout the world. So in this world, there was a great war against thinking machines, machines that think like man, AI, robots, AI, and that kind of thing, and they were destroyed. So instead, they have mentats, and mentats are people that have dedicated themselves to being human computers. They don't really go in the Denis Villeneuve version, most recent version. It's very subtle because their eyes, it's kind of like their eyes roll in the back of their heads. They turn white. Their uh, eyes turn white, but they are thinking machines. Lack of emotion, extremely intelligent, and or supplant their emotions with a greater thinking ability. And I like that faction here, where there's people who have chosen, much like in fantasy, a character that becomes a druid or a wizard or something of that nature is a great idea in terms of like, their function in society. People need them, but they also have a loyalty to the house that allows them to become these individuals. Princess B says, "My only problem with the Benny Jesuit is that it kind of follows a fantasy trope of the time. It sure does. That women can be adjacent to power. They can manipulate power, but the power that they wield within society is usually through men and marriage." That's and I if not, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm going to say that that is a commonality amongst our world. So historically, so I think the writer just basically went, "Oh, well, I'm going to throw magic powers in there and do it that way." But let me continue with your comment here. Um, um, and Princess says, "And I get it." Right, yeah, exactly. That is the time the book was written in, and I am glad the movie stuck to it because Dune is one of my favorite books. But it is something I usually notice from stuff from time to time. No, 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 no. You first of all, you're absolutely right. Well done in the books. Well done in the movie. Is it a trope? Yes. Women tend to not have power. The, they tend not to be the queen, but the king makers. They tend not to be king, but king makers, which is very true, right? It's and in a strange okay, as tropish as it is, it also means that listen, many powerful men have risen and fallen because of the women next to them for by choice or by force, right? Like it's like and so yes, that is an extremely common trope. And of course, with the books really embracing the medieval style of it, yeah, absolutely. Could they switch it up a little bit, like they switched up? I know people get so weirded out about taking a character and changing their gender, but if that doesn't have anything to do with their core essential value, I don't think there's any problem with it. Which allows me to segue over into another character, and this is a I'm going to call her the scientist. Last name of Kynes, if I remember, Kynes. I can't believe I remember that. Anyway, the scientist Kynes. It is. I don't remember this from the book, so apologize for misrepresenting the information in the books. But in this movie, you get the idea that she was not born on Arrakis, the planet Dune, but she has really been embraced and has embraced the culture that is there. And there is this sub belief within the people there that water can be brought to Dune, and she's part of a failed scientific experiment to figure out how to bring water to Dune. And she is she's the equivalent of the outsider who's going native. And the character who used to be male, they changed her female, change it up a little bit. I don't I like the character, so I literally have zero problem with it. I could care less what her gender role is, um, uh, changing it from the books. But she represents, how many times have we seen in stories where someone from the outside goes native to uh, people that are misunderstood? Yeah, Liet Kynes. I think they call her Doctor Liet Kynes because she's like a professor, a scientist, not a medical doctor, but she does represent those people. And then she's the one that brings the our escapees from the Atreides family, Paul and his mom, down into his chambers where they've abandoned trying to find water on Dune. And I like this idea because it's a great way to maybe show a little bit of an NPC that has changed sides and why somebody would do this kind of thing, and a belief system that's out there that you can try to kind of drop little breadcrumbs for other player characters, like water on Dune. I thought the planet was a desert planet, and it's like, well, maybe is this a legend? Is this a real thing? Is this something that the player characters could follow or use this information for themselves? So I like that. I like the idea of an NPC that has an agenda, and this is a great tool for other people to use. Pick when creating an NPC. If the player characters never come across this NPC, they still have a life. They still want something out of for their. They have a desire. They have fears, and they want something. And this is the thing that they want. Now, the player characters might throw a monkey wrench into those desires, those fears, those wants and needs, those obsessions, and the Dr. Leah Kynes is that character, right? Because she looks at the Atreides like just like anybody else, like rolling her eyes, like okay, here's another noble house coming to this damn planet and thinking they control everything, and they know nothing until she sees and hears Paul Atreides' dad, Leto, say when the miners are in trouble because the sandworm's coming and the machine is broken and they can't get out of there, he's like, "Forget the spice, save the crew." And she's like, "Dope, what? He actually cares about people? I might think differently about these individuals." And so NPCs might see the behavior of our player characters, think one thing, and then go, maybe I'll rethink this and maybe let them in on something I've been thinking about. All right, so Deadman says from the Dune wiki. Okay, Liet Kynes inherited his father's mantle and served as both the planetary ecologist of Dune and leader of the Fremen. I didn't realize it was leader of the Fremen. He continued his father's vision of gradually terraforming the planet from a harsh desert world into a temperate world with precipitation, greenery, and open water. And mind you, if let's say for example you have a setting that's like post-apocalyptic. We all love our post-apocalyptic worlds where something devastating has happened in the past, and then everyone that's in present day is living in these harsh conditions. NPCs that believe in a better world or are working towards that better world, and they might even have the key to it, but might not have all the parts and pieces together. Or maybe they've just got their head in the clouds and this thing will never come to pass. What a great way to do that, because they can both be this is a great character concept for an adversary where they're not evil and they are not enemies, but they might be working antithetically against the player characters because of what the player characters may or may not do. Maybe these people are like, oh, we remember the world where there was no magic, and the player characters are running around with magic, and they look at the player characters like, yeah, we're going to work against you, unless the player characters are like, yeah, we're using this magic, but we understand its its power and how it draws the darker impulses out of people, so we're only using it because we're almost like martyring ourselves or something like that. Yep. And Princess B says, yeah, the father is just some random scientist that comes to the planet to study it and inadvertently starts a paradise religion by just describing what would have to happen to terraform the planet. Yep. Yep. And I love this. Again, here's another thing where there's a trope, and then uh Frank Herbert, the writer, twists the trope a little bit by going like, yeah, the people overhear this thing about the scientist that just some rando scientist, and then the people start to like really embrace it almost as a religion. And or from one person's point of view, they're like, oops, I didn't mean to do that. The other people's point of view, they're like, the Messiah, great, someone's gonna come here and save us. So like, I love it. Hey Nick, what's going on it? Um Deadman says Kynes was survived by his daughter Chani, who later became concubine of Paul. I didn't realize they were related that way. Didn't remember that. As a result, he was grandfather to the God Emperor Leto Atreides II and his twin sister, got Ghanima Atreides. Kynes' descendants continued the terraforming of Arrakis until it became a lush, fertile world. And that's what the other shows. Hey there, Nick, what's going on there? Oh man, yeah. Yes, at some point we will be talking about Advanced Fifth Edition, but the actual true part of the show is we used to broadcast 6 a.m. Monday through Friday, and we would take one concept and talk about that concept all week long. So, but now we're starting on a Wednesday, and we're talking about Dune. Some of the great things about Dune and why it's so good, and of course, what can we steal from Dune, right? And here's another thing as well that we can steal from it is legacy. Player characters might be involved in different various forms of legacy within the world and not know it at the beginning, but then lead things later on. For example, player characters save randos, rando NPCs from a horrible fate. And then those descendants, if the player characters live long enough, or maybe word spreads that Songs could be written, monuments erected, stories passed, legends created, children named after the player characters. I mean, what a great way for the players to leave, and this creates this rolling flow of like the wake of a boat. It just starts to spread out these ripples out throughout the world, and when the players return back, or maybe they even see other NPCs they have no connection to. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Nick. Yeah, he said I did back 5e level up. I got my pack. Yep. Marin, yeah, M Square says players love a statue as long as it's a good likeness. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Now you might not want to have like pigeons like crapping on it or like graffiti written on it or something like that. That might be years, many years later. But for player characters to have to come back to town, and like the town square has this statue erected of them, or maybe even like a statue that doesn't quite look like them, but actually looks is an exalted version of them, like a dragonborn character comes back and they've actually like made a statue that looks like a dragon more so than the dragonborn, like huge wings and water comes out the spouts out the mouth, and there's a plaque at the bottom with their names on it and stuff like that. That's actually kind of a cool stories, songs, ballads, poems written about them. Heck, you could even have um, children doing like puppet shows and plays, reenacting the characters' exploits or something. And I think that's a great like tool to put in the tool chest as for us as creators to go, yeah, you know what? That's actually kind of cool. And listen, to the players and even to us as people who play these games, it even might feel like a minor thing, but when a player heals an NPC or lays on hands or cures them or saves their lives, that's a pretty significant change in someone's life. That's extremely memorable, even though game statistic, it's like, I'm going to roll a d8 plus my level or my wisdom bonus or some bullshit or proficiency bonus. Oh, then gain 14 hit points back. Great. Okay, let's keep going. To them it's a no nothing. For regular people within that world, or if we saw this, not rolled it, but if we saw it, you might think it's incredible to see someone's broken ribs knitted or their broken leg fixed or their skin that's been and torn open to actually knit back together. Uh, Princess B's like, I actually have a gratified legacy statue at one point. A player had to get to the truth of a previous character they had whose legacy had been tarnished. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Hey, listen, uh, tabletop RPGs are made out of commas, not periods, right? It's not the story doesn't have to end and it doesn't need to end. It's just a whole bunch of commas. It's a whole bunch of and dot, right? And having a new character join in to have to fix or a tarnished legacy of another character. Why the hell not? What great good for you. Slow clap on that one. Slow clap. Um, Lastly, we got to talk about Spice Melange, and in the idea that um, it is a desired and needed resource. And what greater thing to have in your world than a resource that has to be that where everyone desires it, they need it, it gives them power, it gives them influence, it it is something that increases their stature, their status, their power. Yeah, and it doesn't need to be a powdered material that people snuff and breathe in and all that kind of stuff. It could be anything. You could call it mage stones or arcane stones. It could be something acquired through ley lines or I don't know, something any the whole point is that it is a commodity that needs to be gathered. And of course, with Dune, they combined it with huge, terrible earthworm monsters that inhabit this world. And so, what a great way to put a valued commodity in its most dangerous locations, or at least in a place where dangerous monsters could come. Especially if you had a world like overrun with, oh, I don't know, Tarrasques or something like that, and the Tarrasques leave behind something very valuable, but you need the higher people to go get it, awesome, right? Anything in the Underdark works this way. Maybe there's like, maybe there are wizards' towers that are like that have lightning rods or something on them, and the rods have to be exposed to absorb enough energy. But then there's other monsters that could get sniff out and want the same energy that you're stealing from them or gathering for them to live off of. Or maybe these wizards' towers get surrounded by these great blind beasts that only come after arcane power or casting or something like anything like that. So there's a commodity that can be gathered. Okay, here we go. So Mike Marin says, imagine a village child getting rescued by a paladin. You can guarantee they're going to make a cute little paladin doll of the player character. Yep, that's a cooler reward than 10 gold pieces. Oh hell's yes. Oh hell's yes. I would listen. If my character, you talk about an artifact, right? Let's say the kid makes the little cute paladin and hands it to the paladin. You know that that character is going to staple that to their waist, and friggin' they will they will destroy worlds to get that little doll back. I don't care how. Much better than 10 gold pieces. Hell's yes. I know my PC would. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I jump into pits of hell to get that damn thing back. If some pit fiend stole it off my waist, like give it back. You're like, I've got your sun sword. I don't care. Give me back the doll. Yep. Somebody hurts that kid. Listen, that paladin is going to destroy worlds. Somebody smacks that kid in the face. You're like, mother, what the? What a great story that would bring. What a great story. Nick says, my dad told me his story about his friend who was a dwarf. Was a dwarf. Do you like Peanut Sing Sleepy Donna statue of a more goddess of love? She turned him into a hobby horse. I am a little confused. It was a dwarfed. I'm a little confused, but I do understand the idea of oh, 3.5. You could do things like that in 3.5, but I do like the idea that of maybe someone gets. I mean, we've how many times have we seen the trope of someone gets cursed or turned into a statue, turned into a doll, uh, is trapped behind a mirror, is trapped in another world, and they have to come back. You know, ooh, lurker, what's going on? Hey, um, long time no hear there, buddy. Long time no hear. Oh, been here for quite a while, so glad you can make it back. I've been involved in a recent Kickstarter, and I've been really excited about promoting it and things of that nature. The level up advanced fifth edition Kickstarter from N World, so I'm pretty happy about it. My name is in the book for Trials and Treasures. I love it. I love it so much. And they got a chance to it made it to the drawing board. Some of the exploration stuff. By the way, I released like a 5-part delve into how the exploration pillar is used in A5E. So A5E referring to Advanced Fifth Edition as opposed to O5E original Fifth Edition. But yeah, so it's like a 5-part. I think they're between 15 to 20 minutes a piece because I had to break it up because it was just too much. Anyway, lastly, I will say that to world build using off of Dune is um, let's bring it back to something personal, and that is the character of Paul Atreides, um, Maldeeb, the oh, what's the other term for? Oh, I can't remember all the terms, all the descriptors. But anyway, who becomes the God Emperor? But making it personal, and a way to do this is, our player characters, despite them being, at least in the beginning of many of our games, being a small cog in a big machine, are the focus of our attention. And so when they do and say and encounter things and move things around your world, let it mean something. And so if it means that they that they put two and two together in a story and it doesn't fit into your world, make it fit. Right. That's why what's the big thing being talked bandied about now in the interwebs about uh, don't make plots, make plans. It's like create problems, don't make solutions. And so if your players say something like there it is, Usul and Paul Atreides, yep, aka Maud Usul and the Preacher. It's got a couple other names in there too as he's gotten older. But yeah, a lot of titles there. Very much would someone say stolen? Like how Daenerys has a lot of titles? Maybe. Maybe. Okay. But anyway, yeah, giving characters titles, rewarding characters with with again, the paladin saves a small child. The small child makes a little small doll and gives it to back to the player character. Something. Some of these things are really can be really cool. And here's what you do: don't assume that if you do it once, the player character is going to snatch onto it. Sprinkle it throughout the story. Sprinkle it in. Sprinkle, yeah. The player characters confront, I don't know, classic marauding orcs or something out there in the wild. Defeat most of them. The others give up. Have those orcs like follow the player characters around or something like that. Have that be a thing. Oh man, Princess says one issue with drawing from Dune is drawing on the desert environment and making it a more interesting setting. If only there were resources for DMs to make the desert more of a cinematic environment. Hmm, if only. I was going to listen, I was going to get to that tomorrow. But yes, there are cinematic environments. As a matter of fact, I know it's been a while. I still have to do subterranean and rainforests, which is kind of rainforest, jungles, forests combo. Or I know. I got distracted. Yeah, and it's Marin's like, if only. If only. You, I okay. Since we've gotten to the end here, yes, the environment itself, literally the environment itself is a character in the story, and I love the idea that I love the idea that the environment has such an important part of shaping how that world is in Dune. I mean, listen, they wear still suits, short for distilling water or distilling moisture. There is the story and even the movie embraces a very desert Middle Eastern style of culture involved in it, probably because a it's something that's familiar to us, and it's a touchstone that gives it a little more reality, and b it it may be a natural byproduct of living in a desert world itself. The clothing, some of the behaviors, how the people act and react. But one of my favorites is is the character that comes into the that comes to meet Duke Leto and spits on the ground, right? And it's considered to be a form of honor rather than one of disgust. And I really like that. I think we could have more of that in our games. Anyway, Legally Blind Lurker says 75% of the time, your players will come up with better solutions than you will. Slow clap on that one, my friend. Slow clap on that one. That's why over prep hurts so much when all the over prep you've done doesn't work any longer, because statistically, two people thinking is better than one person, statistically speaking, right? You've got three, four, five players. They are going to collectively and individually come up with better ideas than you will. That's just a given. That's no knock on your desire to create a world. It's harness that information, that brain power, that mind fuel. You need to harness it. Don't fight against it. So when they draw lines between your vampire lord and your dragons, and they go tell you, you know what, I bet they're working together, and you didn't even you had no intention of you dropped one and went for the other one, and now they're like they're working together. You what you do is you write it down and you go, yep, absolutely, they sure are working together. You are so right. How do you think this came about? And then you write that bullshit down and you steal that. And now some people, um, I think, wrongly think that that's a cheat. That if your players come up with a solution that you didn't come up with, and then you say that's true, that's circumventing the world or circumventing a problem, or it's a cheat because you didn't have a solution. But I would challenge you on this. It's not a cheat if your players come up with something you didn't, because guess what? Had they never said anything about it, you would have never or probably not come to that conclusion. The fact that they created such a great solution to a problem or created such a great story element that fits into your world and makes them want to stay within that world in and of itself is a random factor that allows us to be surprised as creators and go, I didn't even think about the dragon and vampire lord getting together. Wow, I didn't even think about it. Yep. But anyway, um yeah, work. Yeah, lurkers like, yeah, work smarter, not harder. Hell yeah. Oh hell yeah. Someone come that we all know that powerful people who don't listen to the lowly people who come up with great ideas, they tend to fail a lot too. So yeah, there's some baseline individuals who come up with some great ideas. Um, and we need to listen to them too. Mike Marin says the desert literally defines the way people walk. So of course it influences the story, the attitudes, motivations, etc. And and of course I'm a big proponent of, let it have some mechanical effects. Fifth edition, I know they have difficult terrain, but as I was myself and others were brought into designing A5E, like we wanted it to be far more dynamic than that. Like a desert, most of us think of a desert as like, well, it's just a bunch of sand dunes and it's hot, right? And you're like, yeah, we can make it more dynamic than that with salt flats and sandstorms and the sand shifting like waves on the sea. And here's another thing you can do, especially if you are someone who like doesn't have a lot of money or access to, even though we can type in online and find a lot of monsters, but you don't have a lot of monsters. What you do is take all your basic monsters you already have and take a chunk of them and adapt them to the setting and the environment that you have. So also you can switch one adaptation to another one. So an example would be, take a bunch of your classic monsters, adapt them to the world that you have. So find monsters that aren't normally in a desert and put them there. As a matter of fact, if your desert is like this is just an example, using Dune as the example, use a ton of aquatic creatures and make them sand creatures. What happens when a creature burrows into sand? Are they hidden through cover, like half cover, three quarters cover, full cover? Can a player character follow a burrowing creature? um, Dark vision is pretty much useless in a sandstorm and things like that. So how does that work in your world? How prevalent are some of these things? And of course we love to turn the dials up as far as possible. So take anything that you ever learned about, say, a desert or a swamp or mountains or a frigid region or whatever, and then take that and turn it up to 11. Have people freeze to death within moments in your coldest region or something like that. It's so on and so forth. Yep. And like Princess B mentions, yeah, also most of the terrain classified as hot desert is just bare rock. Sand dunes make up the vast minority of actual desert terrain. Absolutely. Um, a good example would be to look at here in the States, um, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, like mesas and plateaus and rocky regions and things like that. A lot of that has been, if you're a fan of the scenery in a lot of Western movies, cowboy movies, they tend to film a lot of that and use that as a backdrop, and very much. Yep. Very much an aspect of dry, arid locations. Yeah, bare rock or impacted earth, rather. Yep, a lot of that. And of course, what is sand? Sand is just a silicone particulate that's been battered until it's turned into dust, right? Not real dust, but it's sandy beaches are just are rock that's been pulverized over a long period of time when it comes to ocean. And the same thing with deserts. It's rock that's been pounded by wind scouring other rock, and then that rock scours other rock, and then it just gets smaller, and the particulates get smaller and smaller. So Lurker's like, British accent, turned it to 11. Yeah, we here in the states tend to do that with Brits and British accents, don't we? And stereotypes and stuff. Sorry about that, but yeah, sorry, not sorry. But anyway, guys, we've come to the end. I just wanted to throw out some things that, like, why Dune has captured the imagination, and some things we can steal from Dune to use in our own games and to rethink it. By the way, here in the states, Dune has been released both in the theaters, which is the best place to watch it, which I plan on watching at some point soon, and on HBO Max, the streaming service, and it is a visual feast. It is incredible to see, so I love it. Yeah, yeah. Thank you there, M squared. Apologize, but tomorrow we're going to talk about the third pillar. Of course, third pillar of exploration. We have to do that. Oh, okay. All right, here we go. Princess B says another good resource for deserts is the 3.5 book, Sandstorms, which has like 20 types of hazardous sand. Ooh, and 5 types of sandstorm. Has a pretty good environment section for DMs. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, and absolutely. And listen, nothing says that. It's strange to me that as brilliant as we are as tabletop role playing gamers, sometimes we put artificial barriers in front of ourselves when interacting with the rules and the game and things like that. Um, yeah, yeah, like Mike says, but is it a cinematic environment? Yeah, the cinematic part of it is the part that I love. It's like it's the movie part of it, because you guys know, if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be a movie reviewer, like talking head or something about movies or something. But yeah, maybe sometime in the future. Hopefully, I'll still be doing this like 5 or 6 years from now. Maybe I would do that. Anyway, there. Thank you, Lurk. Calling you Lurk. It says, "Have a safe day, my friend." No, all of you have a safe one. Thank you very much for coming back to the show, to be honest with you, because I've been intermittent. I started the show late. I'm I stumble through my words. I don't think about things. I don't write things down. So I don't I do all the wrong things when it comes to enhancing and promoting the channel itself in many ways. So I appreciate all of you navigating past that and getting to the nitty gritty. And so I just appreciate you guys being part of the show. That's why you guys are considered my co-hosts on the show, because otherwise it would just be me and my dumb lug of a face, and that's no good. So tomorrow is Third Pillar Thursday, third pillar of exploration. We do have a large number of people who found the channel and subscribed. Hopefully they've got notified, and those individuals have found me through my involvement with the Level Up creation, the Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition uh, Kickstarter, and the release of that material. So please welcome them if you find them or talk to them, and embrace them as well. You guys know me. I always navigate positively, so we don't want anybody to be this is a supposed to be a positive, fun place for people to disagree with everything I have to say and bring up things that I haven't thought of. And so just let them know, you're not here to agree with me. You're here to, like, hey, let's have a discourse. It's like us getting together before or after the game, and we're having snacks and pizza and drinks and having some fun. So guys, thank you very much. I'm not going to ask you for any call to action. I'm going to leave it there with Legally Blind Lurker. It says, have a safe day, and all of you have a safe day as well. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Oh, I know I need to change the thing. Work has been really tough. We can't find anybody to work for. Normally, we get a ton of seasonal people. I'm a letter carrier. I work for the post office, a postal service here in the States. So, very difficult to find people, so I've had to move the show a half hour earlier. I had some tech issues this morning. I had to move the show a half hour earlier, and I really should change the title because I was hoping it would be temporary. It ain't. It just ain't. So, guys, have a great one. Um, someone else, my significant other, is going to have to use the computer system thereof. So, everyone, have a great one. I will see